Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and welcome to the College of the Sequoias. I'm Brent Calvin, lucky enough to serve as the superintendent and president of this great institution, and I am thrilled to welcome you all to our campus. A couple of reasons for that. First and foremost, the college prides itself on being part of the community and enjoys the opportunity to serve. But in this case, it's personal for us. I'm sure you all know that one of our beloved faculty, Claude Snelling, was taken from us by this Visalia Ransacker, and he's been missed for decades now. In fact, at a retiree brunch on Friday, Claude's name came up, stories were shared, tears were shed. So he is still in the hearts and minds of many that call COS home. So we were happy to help out with this function tonight. And I'd like to thank Sergeant John Vaughn, his colleagues from Visalia PD, for their role in never letting this case go cold. We appreciate their efforts to bring the Visalia Ransacker to justice. So thank you so much, Sergeant Vaughn. As an aside, I've known Mr. Vaughn for over 4 decades. And he was a Little League coach when I was growing up. His son Todd and son Ryan and I competed normally against one another, occasionally with one another, but we were always buddies growing up. And John cut a pretty imposing figure growing up. He didn't want to mess with Big John Vaughn, I'll tell you that much. And yet, the funny part was, even as a 11 or 12-year-old, you knew if you were into some mischief and Visalia PD got called, you wanted for John Vaughn to answer that call. And that's because he was always fair, he was always kind, and he loved kids. I volunteered a lot of his time with a bunch of us, coaching and mentoring, and it's sure great to have you back in your old stomping ground. Welcome back, John. I'd also like to thank the Historical Society, and in particular, Terry Oman and his wife, for all of their work in bringing this story to life and in making this night a reality. Folks, we've only been working on this a few weeks, and we're tuckered. I can only imagine how tired the Omans are, all the work they put into this. So how about a big round of applause for the Omans? I'm going to introduce Terry. He's kind of our resident, I guess, Barbara Walters tonight. He'll lead us through the interview. But I've got a couple of housekeeping items before then. The restrooms, unfortunately, are back up these steep stairs. Men's restroom on the left, women's on the right. We've got bottled water for everyone now. At intermission time, the corner bakery will be delivering a bunch of cookies and other snacks. I know there's probably signs here somewhere that says no food, no drinks, but we're going to relax that requirement tonight so you can bring a snack back to your chair. Same thing with the masks. We're trying to finish out the semester with our masks on indoors, just for our faculty and students that promised we would do that. But tonight we're relaxing all those. So if you're comfortable without a mask, don't wear it. If you want a mask, wear it. And I think we'll all coexist together, at least for one night. With all of that said, I'd like to introduce Terry Oman. He really is the resident Visalia historian anymore. He's the Visalia treasure. I appreciate him so much, the hard work that goes into efforts like this one. I'm proud to call him my friend. So without further ado, let's welcome Terry Oman.
Okay, sound check, sound check, sound check. We okay? Okay, good, thank you. Thank you very much, Brent. It's gonna sound like a mutual admiration society here starting right now, but I've been wanting to do this program since Deangelo was arrested in 2018. And I started working on it then, and I started looking for a home for this program. And I started thinking, where could we do this where we could fit the number of people that would want to see it? And I called Brent one day on the phone, expecting it to be sort of like another cold call I made about looking for a home. And I said, Brent, this is my sad tale of woe. I've been looking for a home. And he said, stop the search. It's right here. And so from that point forward, he has taken everything. He and his team, by the way, team of professionals. Thanks to him, we have this whole presentation tonight that's being live streamed on Zoom. So not only do we have a good crowd here inside the lecture hall, we have a good crowd on Zoom as well. So I thank you all for coming and being here tonight. And I also thank those folks that are with us on live streaming tonight as well. I'd like to do a quick introduction of the Vice President of Visalia Heritage, which is one of the groups, obviously the group that's sponsoring this evening. I'd like to have Walter Deisler come forward, please.
Hi there. Wow, this is a great crowd. Thank you all for coming. Visalia Heritage started in 1978 or 79, and our mission was working to preserve our past. And I think part of what we're here tonight to share is part of our past, and that's what we promote, and we're sponsoring this talk tonight. Over the years, we've had a few or several great accomplishments. One was restoring the chapel at the Visalia Cemetery, writing the Visalia Heritage book, which is now out of print, but we may see if we can print it again. And I think it's very important that we continue our heritage for our future, because that is our future for our community. And it's not just about bricks and mortar. It's also about talks like this that share our past and give some context to our past. So I'd also encourage any of you who would like to become a member of Visalia Heritage. We're looking for members. We're trying to grow in our strength, and we're looking for your input, because the community is where we get or obtain the history. We can't just meet as a small group and figure out the history. We need everyone's heritage from this community. So I think tonight we're here to just ask that if you would like to join, we have flyers in the lobby. So thank you very much. Enjoy the program, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Walter. Tonight, obviously, all of you came to listen to John Vaughn, and we're going to be there shortly, but we've got to do some preliminary things, so bear with me as we do that. This is a community event, obviously, and we have some community people here that I would like to at least acknowledge quickly, and I'll just have you wave your hand if your name is mentioned. And audience, please hold your applause again for the sake of time. But I'd like to introduce anybody here from the City Council, Visalia City Council. Liz Wynn, I know, is watching on Zoom because I talked to her a few minutes ago. Leslie, I think, was going to watch on Zoom as well. Leslie Caviglia, City Manager, she's not here, is she right now? Okay. We have a contingent from Visalia PD here, led by Chief Jason Salazar. And so here tonight we have Captain Alvarez Candido, who I worked with for many years way back when, or several years way back when. Lieutenant Cruz, raise your hand. Lieutenant Ford. Does Ford make it? Nope, okay. And of course, Jason, you raised your hand, right? Yep. I had a chance to work with Jason too before I retired. He came on, I think, as a community service officer in those early years. One thing, and this is a story I tell about Jason all the time, and I shouldn't even talk about it tonight, but when Jason was a young CSO, he came to an event with his guitar. And I thought, what would you come to an event with your guitar for unless you were going to play it? He did. And he sang some of the finest country western songs you had ever heard. Do you ever do that anymore, Jason? Do you? Get him to sing for you and play for you. It is a treat. Really, it is a treat. So we have the Visalia PD contingent. Tom Link, are you here? Tom is here. Tom is president of Tulare County Board of Education. Is Mike Boudreau here? Sheriff of Tulare County didn't make it. Lisa Montero, where's Lisa? Is president of the Tulare County Historical Society. Michael Krebs, Visalia Heritage. He's the president of Visalia Heritage. I almost forgot you, Michael. Is Ray Forsyth here? He was invited, but I didn't hear back from him. Ray was the chief of police during the Ransacker era, and I was hoping he could be here tonight, but unfortunately he's not. Also former city manager too, I might say. Another key player that is really important to this evening and the whole Ransacker story, and that's a man named Tony Reid. And Tony, would you raise your hand? Some of you know Tony. Tony is a pretty amazing guy. He's a private investigator. He's an attorney. And I noticed when he gave me that introduction, he put private investigator before attorney. Is that on purpose? And he's also the author of an upcoming book on the case, the Ransacker case, called 12/26/75. When's that going to be released? July 2nd of this year. Tony Reid, look for it. Another friend, and many of you know this man, Miles Schuper. Where are you? Miles is right here. Raise your hand, Miles. Oh, you are raising your hand. I'm just kidding. Miles, you remember Miles Around in the Valley Voice and Visalia Times Delta? He wrote so many stories about the Visalia Ransacker case during his years with the Times Delta and other media outlets. But he drove down 150 miles to be here to see John and to enjoy the evening with us. So Miles, thanks for coming to that. Now, this is not on my script here, so I'm going off. Now be careful. When I do this, it can be dangerous. We have the pleasure, I'll prepare you, I'm letting you know. We have the pleasure tonight of having somebody that I really didn't think was going to be able to make it. This is Claude Snelling's daughter, Beth Huff. Beth, would you raise your hand, please? And even after all these years, this took a tremendous amount of courage on her part to kind of relive this thing again. You really can't tell the Ransacker story without having her dad in the picture. I mean, he's that important in the picture. And I was happy to hear Brent's comments about him earlier as well. Now, there's one other person I'd like to introduce. No, there's two, but I'm going to start with the first one of that duo. The first one is somebody that doesn't really get a lot of credit for doing much with the Ransacker case. But she played a huge part, I imagine, and I think I'm right on that. Spouses play a big role. When you've got a big case like the Ransacker, which is what John was in charge of. So I can just imagine this grumpy old rascal right here going home and kicking the dog and doing other things during all that stress. And yet Gail, would you please raise your hand? Had to put up with that and somehow calm him down. So thank you. Gail, we thank you for putting up with that man. And don't be so fast. Huh? Do what? Of course you don't know. I didn't tell you I was going to do this. You talk about spousal support, and I'm not talking about a divorce situation. Larry, or Lorraine as my wife is formally known, is always at my side whenever I do these things. She rarely gets on the marquee because I sort of end up there, but she is always doing the heavy lifting behind everything that I do. And thank you again for tonight for doing that. I appreciate it. Thank you for that. So how's this evening going to work? This is the way it's going to work, so you don't wonder how the next hour and 45 minutes is going to go. John is going to have the microphone shortly, and he's going to give a monologue. And just to prepare you, this is an unknown journey we are going to be going on with John. I have not seen his monologue. I've not heard his monologue. And he is going and going to run with it in a few minutes. I will then jump in rarely, but occasionally with a question or something to clarify. About midway through, we're going to have a 10-minute intermission, which allows you to get up if you want to go to the lobby and get refreshments and again, bring those into the hall if you'd like to. And about 7:30, we're going to have 2 roving microphones. They're wireless microphones, and they'll be in each lobby, and COS is providing those and the people to staff those microphones. And if you have a question you'd like to ask John, that's your time to do it. And just raise your hand, and they will hand you the microphone. So you don't have to get up, you don't have to walk down here, you don't have to do any of that. Stay in your seat and ask your question from your seat. And at 8 o'clock, we're going to adjourn. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how the evening is going to work here. So a little quick background, and then John's up. And then John will take the rest of the evening. On April 6, 1974, the first burglary committed by the Visalia Ransacker was recorded. 48 years ago to the day, today, April 6, 1974. And then for the next almost 2 years, this guy, known as the Visalia Ransacker, terrorized our town. Did that by committing over 100 burglaries that we know about, that were reported. Who knows how many unreported that he did? Countless prowling cases, prowling incidents where he wandered through neighborhoods and looked in windows. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that said they had a case of a prowler who they opened their blinds and there was this person staring at them in the face. So for 2 years, this guy terrorized the community, and you can tell the town was really terrorized and fearful. And then what really created the fear was on September the 11th, 1975. At 2 a.m. in the morning, a man entered the Snelling residence just a few blocks from here, went to 16-year-old Beth's room, took her out of the house, back door. Her father confronted the kidnapper who was taking her. And in the course of that confrontation, the kidnapper pushed her down and fatally shot her father. He had given his life to save his daughter. Obviously, the town was even more stunned with the culmination of all these things going on, plus now a homicide. Visalia police were under a lot of pressure to do something, as you might expect. That was the job of the police department. The community, they were buying weapons and doing all sorts of things to come up with ways to protect themselves. And tonight, folks, we have the pleasure of having that lead investigator, retired Visalia Police Sergeant John Vaughn, take us inside that Visalia Ransacker investigation. So again, help me thank John for being here. And John,
in July of 1975, I was promoted to sergeant. I returned to patrol in uniform after being in detectives for 7 years. I became a shift supervisor in patrol. I was there for 1 month, 2 days, 2 weeks. When I was called into Chief Ray Forsyth's office with Commander Dean Marshall, and I was told that I would be investigating the Snelling homicide. They told me that it would take a long time, and I would stay with it until it was over, full time, and I could select any 2 officers in the police department to help. The first one selected was Bill Mcgowan. He was known in the department as a straight arrow, which meant that he came from home to work and went back home. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't cuss. He came to work and worked. He was a juvenile detective who had close ties to Mount Whitney High School, which was our first leads in the case with the yellow leaders. Am I too loud? Bill was punctual, never called in sick, worked hard. The second one selected was Dwayne Shipley. He was not like Bill. He was a crooked arrow. Shipley always told you there's 2 sides there. He gave me this: an investigator's mind only works when it's open. He had the gift of gab. He could talk to anybody. He was so valuable in talking to victims and suspects too. And he was punctual, didn't call in sick, would work overtime, and you assign him something and he would do it. So there was the three of us. So after reviewing all the reports that were already available, because this was after the Snelling homicide, I never responded to the Snelling homicide when it happened. I was in patrol on that other shift, so I wasn't there. So I don't remember the exact date. And that's another thing I want to tell you. If I get a date wrong or a number wrong, please, I'm just trying to remember this. And if I get it out of chronological order, forgive me. I'm trying to tell you. So Mcgowan took over Mount Whitney. He brought in all the Yale leaders. And him and Lieutenant Bob Jump interviewed every Yale leader. Shipley went back to the scene and reinvestigated the homicide and the kidnapping of Beth. And what did he do? He started talking to all the neighbors. Well, let's go back to the Snelling homicide. The screen off Beth's window, bedroom window, was never found. I mean, we couldn't locate it, and we looked. The rear door and her bedroom window were left wide open as points of escape. Their house was in the prime Ransacker area. They'd had a prowler in October of '75 where Jim Arnold, another officer, found shoe tracks that absolutely matched the Ransacker. After shooting her father, he didn't leave Beth on the ground, he kicked her 3 times. All these things led us to think that the Ransacker has something to do with this, because that's the MO of the Ransacker. The ransack burglaries, and I will credit Dean Marshall for putting out a memo that if the officer was responding to a residential burglary in the area, let's go over the area. Walnut to 198, County Center to Mount Whitney. And we broke them up into 4 quarters. They're all about even. And there was an area down Tony Boulevard from Woodland to Visalia that he never entered. No burglaries in those areas. So anyway, we started thinking, boy, this is similar to the Ransacker. Dwayne Shipley pulled one of the best investigative things I ever saw. He went back to a residential ransack burglary at the home of Pat Mono. Currency, jewelry, expensive jewelry left alone on the dresser. Cheap jewelry, 1 area of a pair, coins from a piggy bank taken from his daughter's bedroom. And in that burglary, the ransacker threw her underclothes all over. He had a picture of her on the dresser and he tore it. Typical ransack burglary. And in that burglary, he stole a 38 caliber Oku revolver. Shipley says, Pat, have you shot this lately? And Pat says, Bill Green and I went out to St. John's River a week ago, target practicing. So Jim Arnold and Dwayne Shipley took Pat and Bill Green out to the St. John's River, dug in the bank, in the sand, and recovered 77 bullets. We sent them to the Department of Justice State Crime Lab, and they took out the 22s and the 357 Magnum, whatever they do, and matched the 38 bullets to the Snelling bullet. So now we felt sure that we had our suspect. Then it went downhill. Investigating one case for 8 straight months, nothing else, is very frustrating. I'm not claiming it was a success, because it wasn't a success. We failed. We were working up to that point where Mcgowan was shot, and we had him, and that was what we were working up for, but he got away. And I always, I've done television interviews, and phone interviews and everything else, and I've always said, if we did our job at that point, you never would have heard about these stray rapists or the Golden State Killer. But we didn't do it. So we started going over, and how many people does this hold?
250.
Okay, everybody in this center aisle is a suspect. 147 suspects. That's how many people we went through. We had an anonymous crime line, call in the information, don't leave your name, and we would sit there in the morning and go over a dozen calls every morning. We would ask people to rake their yards, and if you saw a shoe track, call us, and we spent every morning after the telephone to go out and check shoe tracks to find out where he's going. That's how we caught him, which I'll tell you a little bit. And I have to read this because I know I'll leave something out. Visalia, Tulare, not Porterville, Farmersville, Exeter, Hanford, Lemoore, Tulare County. All barber shops, because he had a short military haircut. Ice cream shops, because he ate ice cream in numerous houses. In fact, that's one of the things each year rapist did that they wouldn't believe we had. Military recruiting offices, mental hospitals, Deangelo, Portville. We went to all these places. Coin shops, because he kept taking coins. All police departments. Don't anybody ask me how many times we went to Exeter, because we did. Sheriff's office, probation, parole. We did maps, we did calendars, we did the moon, we did the days of the week, we did the times. Oh, blue chip stamp store, we were there once a week trying to catch this guy because he took blue chip stamps in several houses. And a lot of houses, people didn't know they had any. We would ask them, do you have any blue chip stamps? And, oh, I don't think so, I'll check. I don't know why he took those. We had Dr. Joel Ford on the case with us, who was a Patty Hearst psychiatrist in the Patty Hearst case. I remember going to Tascadero, and the doctors at that hospital met us in a meeting and said, we think he lives alone, he is left-handed, he's clean. And somehow I always remember, he said, you gotta find his barber. You find his barber, you gotta get shot at. I always remember that. So that was going on. Well, I decided we're gonna take Beth to Los Angeles Police Department to hypnotize her. They had a unit there. I know hypnosis is not accepted anymore, that's fine. But at that time, I thought it was a tool that we could use in our investigation. I will tell you right now that every time a suspect said, I don't want to talk to you, I want an attorney, I would shut off the tape recorder, put down a pencil and paper, and we'd talk for 2 hours. And I couldn't use any of that in court. I realize that. But boy, did I learn a lot of stuff. Like a cat burglar we caught in the act. He said, I'm not doing your job for you. You figure it out. So I turned the tape recorder off, put the pen down, and that was the best burglary class I ever been in. And you know the one thing he would tell me? How did you get by them dogs? That always bothered me. Anyway, Beth and I and her mom, Arlene, went to LA. All the way down, she was down and introverted and didn't talk much. I had the feeling she thought she was at fault for some of this. She went into hypnosis, was a great candidate, calm, everything. And one of the things that come out of the hypnosis that we always focused on was that they asked Beth to smell the guy. And she says, he smells clean. I can't smell anything. He's got good hygiene. I couldn't smell smoke. I couldn't smell that he doesn't drink. He wasn't a doper. He wasn't shaking. He was very calm. And she said he has a raspy, loud, whispering voice, which Pat Mono told us before that the guy called him on the telephone after the burglary and said, I'm coming over there and killing you and your wife and daughter, in a loud, raspy, whispering voice. Was another reason that we thought the Ransacker was guilty of killing Claude Snelling and kidnapping the daughter. At the end of the hypnosis, the operator told Beth that she had nothing to do with this case. She's innocent. Her dad would want her to live a good life. And all the way back to Visalia, she laughed and talked, and looked at the scenery along the beautiful highway. 99 scenic route. So that's what we got out of that. The people started calling us on the crime line. Every time someone would say, so-and-so is a ransacker, this guy killed Claude Snelling, then we would have to go to work. We had a pile of sound X's from DMV, which are the size of a playing card, that high. We went through 147 suspects that we would eliminate, maybe check further. That's the way investigations go. We found if a guy was dirty, beer, smoked, drugs, wasn't left-handed, we look at a left-hander more. Then we would say, no, that's not him. We kept on and on and on and on. And the people kept calling us about raking their yard. One day, this lady calls us and says, she found shoe tracks in her yard. We go to the house, we find the shoe tracks, and Mcgowan finds a flower pot off the ring in the dirt about a half an inch. It says, this flower pot has been moved. So we go around to the side of the house, and under the daughter's bedroom window is the ring of the flower pot. So we decided, instead of us going over here, instead of sending Terry out on another a ransack stakeout, that we would say, okay, we can't catch him, we're gonna let him come to us. So we went back to that house and staked out until he came to us. Up until that time, we were really at a loss. I mean, I can remember, here's another thing I want to mention about Terry. Terry came to us from down in LA area, is that right? Bill Mcgowan, LAPD, Gary Ellis, LAPD. They were different. I mean, they were different. How many of you know George Weir and Bruce McDermott? different. They were different. Bruce McDermott and George Weaver thought Visalia was the greatest place in the world. Terry knew better. Terry and Bill Mcgowan would never let their guard down. They'd pull a traffic stop and they would think everybody in the car is gonna attack them. George Weaver and Bruce McDermott thought they were gonna give them a cup of coffee. I used to teach vehicle stops and traffic enforcement, and a local high school kid in Visalia that goes to our local high school does not make a safe officer. These guys made a safe officer. You know, I always remember, and I like to tell this story, a good friend of mine worked for Visalia PD, left and went to Montclair PD, became a canine officer. On a weekday afternoon on a street like Mooney Boulevard, stops a guy with a 48 and a 35. Walks up, gets his driver's license, registration, insurance, walks back to his car, which contains a dog, writes out the traffic ticket for speeding, walks back up to that car. Here's a veteran officer. Walks up to that car and puts the pin under his thumb, puts the citation book into the guy's car and says, sign right here. And the guy grabbed both of his wrists, pop, broke his nose, lost 2 teeth on the rain gutter above the door of the car. His dog jumps out, which he's supposed to do, bites the guy's left ear out. You know what happened? Lost the dog. So that's a good example why I put Terry and Bill Mcgowan on a mobile vehicle to respond to any Ransacker traffic. And I remember putting them at the post office on Beach Street because we had 2 burglaries on Woodland Avenue. And they were to respond to any traffic concerning the Ransacker. That's why they were together. Terry always wonders why that happened. But that's because he was a safe officer. I saw the Ransacker twice. One time he ran across Myrtle Avenue in Kauai at a high rate of speed, sprinted across the middle of the block. I saw him knocking on the door of a house at the Visalia and Kauai on a stakeout. We get down there and he's gone. We use dogs. You know the ditch south of Mount Whitney that runs across Tulare, Conyer, and goes over by Clyde Soto Field. He loved that ditch. We would track him with dogs where he would walk 10 paces, stop and turn around, and walk 10 paces, stop and turn around. And then we would track him up against the houses in a residential area, up against the house, not on the sidewalk. And if he came to a house where there was no shrubs or bushes in front of it, he would go around behind the house and come out further down the street. He never crossed the street in an intersection. He never crossed the street in an intersection. He would cross the street in the middle of it. We found people that caught him in front of him, and he gave all these diversionary stuff. Can't a guy take a pee? Hey, Joe, someone's over here bothering me. I'm looking for the Taylors. You know where they live? All the time he got caught, he was doing that, and he'd walk away. That's how we got such a good description, Joe. Okay, where am I? Down in LA, when we took Beth, they had a composite artist who was well respected around the state as being one of the top artists. he did a composite drawing of the Ransacker while Beth was under hypnosis, even though he wore a ski mask. You got that?
Yeah. It's up there.
Okay, it's the one on the left. When we staked out with the flower pot that moved, we caught the Ransacker. He had just burglarized Dr. Rome's house, dropped a sock containing coins from the piggy bank, blue chip stamps, and some cheap jewelry. Dropped it on the patio behind the house where Mcgowan and Shipley were staked out. We had officers all around the area that night. Now, maybe I missed this, but you have to understand that in all of his burglaries that we know about, when people saw him, he wore a ski mask. So here comes a guy down the walkway by the garage, right past Mcgowan, into the backyard where the flower pot had been moved, wearing a ski mask. Mcgowan confronts him in the backyard. Police officer, freeze. And the guy starts in a high, Mcgowan said, female-like voice, started screaming, don't hurt me, I'm not doing nothing, don't hurt me. And Mcgowan says, freeze right there, police. And he had his gun out. Being from East LA, he's got flashlights out here. His flashlight wasn't here like George Weaver. So, all of a sudden, the Ransacker goes just like this. Left-handed. Boston? So there's Bill. Okay, he shoots with his left hand, hits Bill's flashlight dead center. It explodes, hits him in the face, injured his eye, and he falls to the ground. Shipley comes running up, the guy jumps a fence, and even though we had 20 officers in the area, he gets away. We actually found where he crossed Noble Avenue, climbed into the freeway, and hid behind a big palm tree at Giddings and Noble, and watched our command center set up, try and catch him. So I thought, okay, I'm taking Bill Mcgowan to LFP. Hypnosis. Bill was not, Bill was not best known. They had to take his gun away from him. He got sick, and we had to stop and bring him out and go back later. He kept saying, where's Shipley? Where's Shipley? He just was a nervous wreck.
Is this under hypnosis, John?
Under hypnosis. He described the guy, I don't even think he shaves. He doesn't come out in the daytime, he's white. He's very pale, he's like a baby. And so on, and I'll get to the good part. They said, have you ever seen him before? And he said, yes. And I'm sitting there, I mean, I was president during Beth's, and I was president during Mcgowan. So I had all the notes and facts. And he says, yes. And they took Bill Mcgowan back 2 years to Merle's Drive-In. And the guy come in, sat at the counter, ate ice cream, and had a green army fatigue jacket with black letters over the right breast pocket. And Bill says he kept turning around looking at me. And he said he had this jacket on and he couldn't understand that because it was hot out. And that's the only other time that Bill Mcgowan ever saw him. Now, then we relied on Bill trying to identify the Ransacker. We had contributions from lieutenants, sheriff's office, everywhere. The crime line was going crazy. The people were still calling. And every time we get a suspect, Bill would say, no, that's not him. Bill would look at the composite that was on the right, under hypnosis, said, no, that's not him. But I think that's closest to Joseph Deangelo at Exeter PD, where we learned about it. So after that, it was just routine, stressful, frustrating work that we just forgot getting any results. So we hear about an East Area rapist in Sacramento. Bill and Shipley go to Sacramento. I will say this right now. Anybody here from Sacramento Sheriff's Office? They are checking for weapons. Bill and Shipley came back to Visalia and said, Sergeant Mcgowan, the rape detectives don't talk to the burglary detectives, and the burglary detectives don't talk to the rape detectives. They're having ransacked burglaries. The rapist, similar description, white male, height, weight, shoe size, favored his left hand when he was raping the women. And they decided that no, it's not the same suspect. In a Sacramento paper, they actually said that we were publicity seekers. We were from a podunk PD.
Wow.
We had no business being in Sacramento. East Area rapist was going crazy up there. The sheriff said, I do not want anyone in our area to know that the East Area rapist is a murderer. Then what happens? He kills the majority, husband and wife. Killed them both, shot him with the left hand. They still wouldn't go. In 1977, this is 1975, we worked until April of 76. And I'll tell you this, and I want everybody to know this. After Mcgowan was shot, we never had another ransack burglary. We didn't, our prowling calls went almost down to zero. We could stake out and there'd be nobody out. Crime went down. So he had to go somewhere. We knew that. He wasn't a burglar. This was a sexual deviant. He had mental problems. So in 77, Detective John Sanders and I went to Sacramento again. I'll back up. This was after several phone calls. I mean, I was talking to the lead investigator, Shelby, on the phone numerous times. But Sanders and I went to Sacramento in 1977, and we took over 100 pages of the Snelling Ransacker case. It took photos of shoe tracks, composite drawings, and all the information we could on the ransack burglaries, and they did not believe us. That's about the end of it, until people started calling in. We still were trying to follow up leads, but it was all not a waste of time, but it was dreary, boring thing that we kept going, but we were ready for a break.
We'll get it set. 5 more minutes. You want to? I have a question. If you did. What was VP's best opportunity to catch this guy?
Well, all the law enforcement people in this room know that you work the case up to a point, and that's the point where you want to be successful. And that was when we had Mcgowan shot during that stakeout. That was our chance, and we didn't do it. And if anybody's wondering where I was not there. I was in Cal Poly, Pomona, going to a school on a special investigator thing called PERT training, where you put picture paper all the way around the building and the wall, and you started a case and went off it. That was a new investigative technique. So I wasn't even there.
But if Mcgowan was shot, or he actually did shoot though, right?
Shot it.
Was it some kind of a warning shot or a mistaken shot or?
A warning shot.
No. Okay. Any other opportunities to catch this guy? I mean, you saw him twice.
Yeah. But, you know, now that we know who it is, who it was, we went to Exeter numerous times. We went to Exeter PD. Well, you know, in those days, Ray Forsythe and Dean Marshall and our supervisors, when you went into another jurisdiction, you notified them that you'd be there. If we went to Exeter, we had to stop by the PD first, let them tell them we're gonna be there. We're gonna go to all your ice cream stores and barbers, shops. We're checking this out. We thought he came, I'll tell you right now, we thought he came from the west or the east, because Avenue 256 between Mooney and Lover's Lane was a worn path by the Ransacker. In a ditch south of Mendonca's place, I found a .38 caliber Taurus revolver that had been stolen in a burglary on Mountain Drive, prior to the Snelling homicide. We found a large plastic raincoat wrapped up and tied with a big, long, yellow handle screwdriver that had been used as a pry tool. Because the ransack burglaries, there were several houses where he pried a window and a door from the inside as points of escape. I would say there were over 50 burglaries where the doors and windows were open to the back of the house as points of escape. On the doorknob to the front door, he would leave a bottle of liquid. So when you turn the doorknob, it would fall down and alert him. He would put lamp against the front door, so when you opened it, you'd knock the lamp over and he'd go out the back. Pictures. I forgot about that. So I'm starting to remember more. It's only a couple weeks ago. He would do the 3 T's. If he saw a picture of a pretty girl, birthday, wedding, high school graduation, he'd take it, tear it, or throw it. The mother, no bother. Never bothered the adult. He'd lay all the women's underclothing down the hall. And one I went to, that I had invested, he laid the women's underclothing down the baby's bassinet. He used bottles of lotion for you know what. He wasn't a burglar. This was a sick person. before I forget, he kept talking about Bonnie, and he's your rapist. I hate you, Bonnie, I hate you. Now you find Joseph Deangelo was engaged to Bonnie, and she said, no, I'm not married. And that was leading to his following that. A lot of weird stuff. Here's a weird fact that probably nobody in here knows. Joseph Deangelo was from Elmira, New York. I'm from Binghamton. We were in the same high school athletic complex. I'm left-handed, he's left-handed. I never knew him, and I never played sports. I think I was better for a couple of years. But that's a strange, strange coincidence to show you how small the world is. How small the world is. Okay, 7.
John is right again. It is 7, and we're going to take a 10-minute break. Please promptly be back at 7:10 so we can reconvene. And again, you can take refreshments into the hallway. See you in a few.
Ransacker, and John's, and I used to coach with Ransacker. And like I said, I have every book on, there's 2 of them on Ransacker. And all the cheerleaders, he didn't bring that up. He wrote in a form here. In the parking lot of about my team. And Beth Snelling was a yell leader, and apparently her yell leader girls, and they thought that the Ransacker so that was one of the things that they thought was we went after them with yell. The other thing was when the East Area rapist was active, I lived in Stockton, and I lived right in the middle of where, because he attacked in Stockton twice, and I remember when we were freaked out. And I was about, my dad had a gun, and, locked up, or nobody locked their doors. The front door was wide open. Doors were, that was scary. There was two incidents in Stockton, and we were like in the middle of those. They were when he was doing, that was when he had graduated to where he would make the husband lie on the bed, put the plates on his back, and then do whatever he was. And both of those were really cool. That was after he got scared of El Salvador. He came down because it was getting a little too hot. So he went to stock, and then he also went to Bay Area, did the phone for the 684 Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's multiple books on the Eastern I have a lot. Those Because he ended up killing like 14 people total. He did a bunch in LA. It was Visalia to Sac, to Stockton, to Modesto, to the Bay Area, to Los Angeles. So in LA, he didn't leave. He just killed everybody. I think it was 13 total. Yeah, and then they figured out later they stopped us when he started having he's done and that's when he stopped. So like his last one of his daughters. It took him like, it was over a year. They had this huge family tree. One person. No. I want to know if I'm ready. Those books are real. I think it's so redundant because he did the same sentence. Sometimes it's not cool. See, that could never happen today. Alarms, locks, cameras. Back then, that's how he lost his job at Auburn Police Department. He went into a hardware store in Sacramento in uniform and stole a hammer and he got busted. That's how he lost his job. He's a mechanic.
There wasn't anyone else waiting up there. We were in the overflow room. We got one.
What I heard. Oh, yeah. I'm surprised. Yeah, well, there was no incense passed. But that was close enough.
Is your hand up already? Is your hand up? Thanks, Todd. No, I don't need that. I got this. Hey. Coming. Okay, we're gonna begin, please. Okay, thank you, and we're gonna turn it over to John again. Brent, do you need to say anything? You're okay. You're good? Okay, John, take it from here. And you're on a lapel mic now. For those of you that were having a hard time hearing, he's on a lapel mic. Let's do a sound check real quick. Do a sound check. Can everybody hear me now? Thanks to my son, I've been rigged with a different microphone. And I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, here's another sore subject. On November 15th of 74. Remember April of 74, Ransacker started?
November of '74, a young girl was last seen at Kmart, which is right next to the target area. She was found on a ditch bank in Exeter, murdered, molested, never solved. Joseph Deangelo did that. If I could talk to Joseph Deangelo, that's the first thing I'd ask him. Please close that case out. I couldn't investigate it because it was a sheriff's office case. I mean, it wasn't a Visalia case. It was a sheriff's office case. But that has bugged me all these years. There was another girl named Donna Richmond who was murdered in Exeter, found on a ditch bank. And I always wondered why they never looked at the Visalia Ransacker for that. A person was arrested and convicted and died in prison. But I still always wonder if Joseph Deangelo might have done that. We have no idea what Joseph Deangelo might have done that we never caught. I always felt that even though we had 147 suspects, we had enough evidence to prosecute the suspect, the person, if we could identify the person. But we never identified the person. When we went to Exeter, I know for a fact that Joseph Deangelo disappeared. He would go out on patrol or go investigate a case or something like that. We never saw Joseph Deangelo when we went to Exeter. I always felt he had a radio. We had portable radios missing during that time. If he had a portable radio or didn't have one of our portable radios, he could have been talking to another officer who would give him information because he's a policeman. Did we ever suspect a policeman besides Bill Blankenship? Bill Blankenship was the #1 most person offered on our crime line. Bill Blankenship is a ransacker. He was blonde, baby-faced, didn't shave, and he was left-handed. I mean, we probably could have arrested him and got the DA to file. But anyway, it just dawned on me. The screen from Beth's window, we actually did an airplane flyover and looked down and took a picture. And there on an RV camping trailer across the street from the Snelling's house was Beth's window screen. So this guy actually took the screen off and walked across the street and put it up on the camping trailer, then came back. He did a lot of weird things, a lot of weird things.
Can I ask you a question, John? If you had it to do over again, would you do anything differently in the investigation?
You're a sketch guy. I wish I had been there. I've always felt bad that I was, and I remember, and I've told my wife this before, I went down to the bar and got a drink when I heard Mcgowan was shot. I mean, you talk about a feeling to be in Pomona when Mcgowan gets shot, and I've been working on that case for months and months. I mean, I got sick to my stomach. I remember I ordered a 7 and 7. I remember that. And it didn't help. I should have ordered a Long Island iced tea. My kid understands that one. After Joseph Deangelo was arrested, Shelby Sheriff's Office comes out with left-handed, 5'9", 5'10", 160, right age, ransacks houses, takes one earring out of a pair. And he says, wow, that's just like the Visalia ransack. So after it was over, they come out and admitted that they made a mistake. And I know someone's going to get mad at me for saying this, and it might never change, but I think a problem in law enforcement in California is that the sheriff and district attorney are elected. That don't work. Have you ever seen a deputy sheriff write a traffic ticket? No way, the sheriff don't want the ranchers getting cited. As long as they're elected, politics are going to be different in law enforcement. And another thing I'd like to tell everybody, and maybe I'm the only one that feels like this, but if my son screws up, he don't get spanked 6 months later. He gets spanked 6 minutes later. And until we get the crooks in jail and in court and sentenced, it's not going to work. You know, this is a good example. On Watson Street, across from Mount Whitney campus, there's apartments. We were getting hit with a burglar, and this was prior to the Ransacker, when I was in investigations. We were getting hit with a series of pipe wrench rip-off doorknob burglaries. We get a call from an apartment dweller, hey, there's a guy breaking into the apartment across the patio with a big orange pipe wrench, and he's coming out of the room with a TV, a big TV, and he's getting into a blue Mustang parked at the curb. We caught him at Jefferson Park. In the back seat was a big television. On the floor, we didn't even search the car. On the floor was a big pipe wrench. He's a heroin addict. He says, man, you got me cold. I mean, there's no way I'm getting out of this. He cops out to 7 other burglaries. When we book him into the jail, he's pending 2 shoplifting cases, 2 passing stolen check cases, and 11,550, which is 90-day mandatory jail sentence for being under the influence of narcotic heroin. He's got needle marks. He goes to court. It's all reduced to a misdemeanor. He gets sentenced to 120 days because he has to do 90 for the 11,550. He listens to tapes while he sleeps at night saying to be a good boy and don't break the law, and gets credit for 8 hours off his sentence. He gets out of jail serving 90 days. He gets up to me and says, you know what, Vaughn? I got 3 meals a day. My wife wasn't nagging me. I didn't have to worry about paying bills. And until that changes, and I go back to disciplining your kids. You know, I remember when I raised my boys, if they did something wrong, they went in their bedroom, closed the door, and told me when they were ready to get spanked. Todd would wait 30 seconds, come out with a book in his pants, and said, have at it, Dad. My son Ryan would cry in the bedroom for 45 minutes, and when he come out, I couldn't. Until that changes, I think there's going to be a problem in law enforcement. Got anything, Tony?
John, we have a couple minutes. Can I ask you a question?
when you heard of Deangelo's arrest, what went through your mind?
That's a good question, Terry.
Thank you, John.
You know how I found out? Tony Reid, best investigator in California. The cops ever want to help, there's a guy that'll help. When I heard Joseph Deangelo was arrested and he was an ex-Exeter police officer, the first thing that went through my mind was, God, I'm glad I'm still alive. I'm sorry Mcgowan and Shipley aren't. And thirdly, which I thought was the most strategic emphasis on my personality, my well-being, was I was sure glad it wasn't somebody that we already checked out. If that had been one of the 147, I wouldn't be around today. That's all I got. I think.
You're done, unless you got something to open up the question.
I'd like to have some questions.
Okay. Now, where are our roving mics? Brent, you're going to be a roving microphone holder?
Well, until I trip and fall and break an arm or something, yes. Who's first?
Yeah, well, if you don't mind your name, otherwise don't worry about it.
I don't mind. So I don't have a question. I have 1,000, and so I'm not going to ask any. But I would like to make a couple of statements. I've become a little more familiar with this case over the last few years, and I think John knows this, but he probably needs to hear it. You talk about having failed, and to the extent that you didn't make an arrest, I suppose that could be said to be true, but your efforts to take this to Sacramento were rebuffed, and if there was a hero in this story, you are a hero. The other thing I would like to say is, that word hero gets tossed around a lot, with the Marvel universe, but I never thought I would get the opportunity to say to Beth that your father was such a hero. And I just want you to know that when people look through this case, what percolates up is heartache for you and your dad for what happened that night. I just, I know that everybody here loves you. Last comment, I promise. John mentioned the problem with politics and county law enforcement, and that is so true. And if you want to get a taste of it or a belly full of it, listen to the podcast 122675. The guy that, yeah, please. It's a hefty podcast. It's fascinating. It's the most well-resourced, well-supported presentation of its kind that you'll ever find. The guy that made it is down there with the Hollywood good looks. And sounds like he's getting a book made. I'm just hearing about that, but I'm excited for him, and I suppose he'll probably get a role in the movie when it gets done too. Anyway, there's a real problem with what John talks about with the district attorney and the sheriffs being elected offices. And if you listen to 122675, you're going to find out that this problem has manifested corruption and horrific problems for 50 years that are documented in this one podcast. So I encourage everyone to go tune in and listen to one episode a night, and I promise you'll be glad you did. Thank you.
Want to talk? Get your questions, get your questions.
I want the mic.
You've got the mic.
While I'm thinking about it, I want to tell you something about Tony's book, which I think you all should know. You an oldest, Todd? Tony sent me a 300-page manuscript of the book. Please review this in 2 hours. And let me know if there's anything I should change. And I want to tell you, when I started reading it, I saw a major glowing error in the book. And I called Tony right away down in LA. I said, Tony, you screwed this up. He said our Jeep was yellow and it was orange. I want everybody to know that.
Tony, would you like to rebut that or comment? Could we get the microphone down here, please?
Lauren will have to do it. I'm stuck here, and it'll take 2 or 3 people to get me up, so.
Get your other questions ready, because we'll be at you in a second. Right over here, yeah.
Brent, we have someone in the back too. She's next. Oh, you'll be third, okay?
Oh, I thought you wanted to make.
Okay, we have a pass.
Okay, I've got
Go ahead,
one.
Brent. All right.
Thank you,
Got one.
Tony.
Here you go.
He asked me if I was going to sing, and I told him yes. My name's Marion Cody. I follow this case very closely over the years because of a relationship with the great couple there. My question mainly is, was there never any fingerprints left on everything this man was in the houses and touched? I know the DNA was what basically caught him, but was there never any prints showed up anywhere?
We discovered a lot of prints. We sent them all to the DOJ crime lab, and most of them came back to the people that lived there. And the ones that he didn't identify, we could not compare them to any fingerprints in the system. Now, I know that police officers are fingerprinted before they're hired, but never came back, and we just assume he always wore gloves. The DNA was unheard of. I think it was 1987 they started DNA in England. So at 75, we had no DNA. I wish we did. Stand up, Miles. They can't see you.
Go ahead, and I'll repeat the question, Miles. Go ahead with it.
I know Sacramento connection. I was the first one. Sacramento, like they kind of ignored it. They had been on the murder up there. They didn't want public to know that the neighbors out there had been murdered. But there was several other reasons for, by saying, investigating people in the Sacramento area, I will find suspects. And without mentioning any names, I know they were looked at very heavily for a lot of different reasons. And I wondered if you could comment on that.
Let me repeat some of that, Miles, and bear with me if I get this partially wrong, but Miles was a reporter for the Times Delta for many years. In fact, some of you may remember his column called Miles Around. And he is one of the early reporters that wrote stories in the Delta, at least on the Ransacker. And I think you pointed out, or your articles were some of the first ones that connected our Visalia Ransacker to the East Area Rapist up in Sacramento. Sure.
Nobody really told me directly, but it had to be the same guy.
Sure.
It had to be the same guy.
Sure. Yeah, but a lot of it can be credited to Miles' story. That's how a lot of us got our information. And, I might add, a number of us were on the PD at the time. And I can remember John coming to a briefing and telling us selected little bits of the Ransacker story. And it was, he didn't share everything. And we were cops. But was a need to know basis. Why were you so secretive, John, about the details of this? And there's a good reason for it.
Is Mike Ship there? You know, I always felt that knowledge is power. And I like to keep some of that knowledge back because I wanted that power. I don't know.
Well, I know
Trade, I guess.
because I asked you later and you said, you know, there are certain aspects you want to hold close to the vest so that only you know those things. So if somebody comes forward and says, I'm the ransacker, you can look at them and look at their whatever, and you can say, hey, where'd you get this information? Well, I got it from the paper, or I talked to a police officer. So, you know, keeping it close to the vest makes a lot of sense. But you felt like you were being left out to some extent, but you knew why. And that was because, you know, during World War II, what was the old expression? Loose lips sink ships. So if we would, as officers, casually share a fact that you felt was critical, all at once we could have a negative effect on the case. And so, I mean, that's why detectives keep things close to their vest, is because they don't want to reveal anything they don't have to. So anyway, that's what you told me at least.
My name's Robin, and my dad just passed away recently, but he always had this thing in his mind about the Ransacker. We lived on Redwood Drive. There were, you could see Denny's from our house. Whitney came around the backside, and the Snellings lived behind us. And we had footprints lots of times, and my dad was always calling. One of the things, did we ever know where Angelo lived? Because my dad held to it that he was our neighbor at the corner of County Center and Whitney, across from the water place. There was a Exeter cop car that sat there all the time, in and out during this whole Ransacker time. Did we ever attach that, or?
That's news to me. I don't recall that.
My dad always held to it. I remember the car being there too.
I know he lived in Exeter, but I don't recall him living in Visalia. But I don't know a lot about Joseph Deangelo, you know.
Well, yeah, okay. All right.
I would love to know what he did with all the, you know, all the doctors we talked to said he's gonna keep all those earrings and rings as trophies. And I thought when they arrested him that they would find a storage facility somewhere where he kept all his stuff. And they never did, and he never talked to him.
Yeah, he took things. He took a photo from my house and several things, and, you know, the flashlight was the only thing found, but nothing else. Okay, thank you.
You actually just answered my question. My name is Michelle Young Barnes. My husband's house was broken into on March 1st, 1975, and they took an antique gun. When Deangelo was arrested, my husband called the Visalia PD, wondering if there had been anything ever found, you know, any of his stuff that he had taken. They sent him to the FBI, and the FBI sent him to the Sacramento County DA's office, and they said that they would continue to look for it. And I was just wondering if if anything had ever shown up, and you answered the question, so I guess not, but.
Well, who's coming? Do you have any more after that?
Yes, we have 90 people, you guys, in a separate room on campus watching on Zoom. So we have a guest from one of those rooms. I'm going to let her ask.
Okay, but before we go to that, her comments. After 1996, when I retired, and the case went on for years and years after that, I lost a lot of knowledge of what was going on. I still got phone calls and still work the case occasionally, but I lost a lot of contact with the case, so I couldn't answer that question. You know, was anything found? I don't know. I wish I did know. I'd like to ask him that. Wait a minute, that one was first.
Hi, my name is Ann Rosenberg, and I grew up on Laurel Lane, just off of Woodland. And I wanted to ask, is there a specific time of year that he was active? He was a prowler in my backyard. When we were growing up, we had the windows open, it was hot. And I was just wondering if he was active like all year round.
Yeah. Yeah, there were no, well, here's another thing it just reminded me of. He never hit on Thursday. And I swear Shelby said the East Area rapist never raped on Thursday. Don't hold me to that, but I'm sure he did. You know what we did on Thursdays? We went to Sequoia Bowling Alley because we thought he was a league bowler. Here's Shipley, McGowan, and Vaughn looking at all left-handed bowlers. Why didn't he hit on Thursday? We don't know. Let me tell you, and I have to read this. He did 59 burglaries in 74, 28 in 75, 46 on Saturday, 17 on Friday, 17 on Sunday. The rest are scattered. 58 on east-west streets, 24 on north-south streets. And, you know, going back to the investigation, we worked more hours, worked more overtime, drove more miles, made more long-distance phone calls than any other case in history of Visalia. And when you go out to Mountain Drive and County Center and Redwood, and he hits at Myrtle and Kauai, we try to get ahead of him, and we never could get ahead of him. He would hit where we did not stake out. And we did not have enough officers. I mean, we had, I don't know what the average, 12 officers out every night, except Thursdays. 12 officers out every night, staked out, and I swear, now that I know it was Joseph Deangelo, Exeter Police, that he knew what we were doing. And you know, a question I hadn't been asked that I thought somebody would ask, was did we ever think it was a police officer? And you know, now that we know who it was, and that he was a police officer, I could say, you know, we should have thought of that because of the .38 caliber weapons, shots fired, good shooter, you know, he practiced shooting.
His tactics too.
His strategy, his points of escape, never hitting an alarm. Dogs weren't bothering. We should have probably thought it was law enforcement, but we didn't at the time. It was a total surprise to me when Tony told me that Joseph Deangelo, an ex-Exeter police officer, I was totally floored. We should have thought of it, probably.
Another question.
I actually asked this young man here this question a while ago, but I think everybody else would like to hear the answer too. Did Deangelo ever get called out to help investigate these, all these things that are happening? How did he avoid that?
We never called Exeter Police to help us.
You never did?
No.
Okay, one more question. You talked about a man in a green jacket that you saw in a I think was it a restaurant or something, that kept looking at you?
Not me, Mcgowan.
Was that Deangelo?
Well, I feel it is now.
You think it is now?
At the time, we didn't know who it was. But that's the only other time Mcgowan ever saw the Ransacker.
Thank you very much.
And they put that together sometime later by hypnosis, is that right? Yeah.
Here, Margie. You ready? You ready? Tony, get ready.
I'm speaking for someone else who is too nervous to talk, but I have seen envelopes that she took to Sacramento in 2013 and 2018 again. She was having jewelry put into her home along with many other things. She was being stalked by Joe, not in Tulare County, but she came from Tulare County. It was in Chico. She took all of the jewelry to Sacramento. The envelopes all have Golden State Killer, Joe Deangelo. She has over 200 pieces. None of it, it's not gold and silver. It is our understanding that he melted that down into bars. But there are lots of single earrings. There are bracelets. There is a money clip with the name Joe on it. There is a silver jewelry box. She has all this. She went to our DA and got nowhere. I have called Mr. Cummings twice, Sergeant Cummings. She does not know what to do with this jewelry. But we know it was put in her house by Joe Deangelo. Sacramento returned it to her, how long ago? After the sentencing. So, any suggestions on what to do with all this jewelry?
I can't say it in front of everybody.
Did you talk to Sergeant Cummings?
Okay.
So where is it now? What? You still possess it? I think you ought to have a garage sale. If Sacramento sent it back, you got to realize right now, if I could get Joseph Deangelo to say he killed Jennifer Armour, they wouldn't do nothing about it. I still feel so bad about that. I think it was a case that haunted me because it was a cowhide game she was going to.
Okay, I have a question up here.
Hi, my name is Steve. The question I have is, Deangelo was going into these houses, obviously spending time in there. Was he raping actually people here in Visalia, or did that start in Sacramento? So when he was going through the houses, going through all the underwear, leaving it all out, was that just a stepping stone into maybe he did his first murder?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And excuse me, one more question before I get taken away. In the book,
let me answer one at a time.
in the book,
all right.
The name of the
keep the mic. Okay. First question. Doctors, Joel Ford, doctors in the Tuscadero, I remember Joel Ford looking me right in the eye and saying, "You better catch him, because he's touched Beth." All we had is burglaries. Now that he touched Beth, he's gonna graduate. He's gonna get bored with the burglaries. You better catch him. So yes, that's a good question. We were so afraid he'd graduate and do more violence. And that's another reason why I missed Jennifer Armour. I thought he graduated. I'm sure he did that. And he's probably done things we don't know about. He burglarized houses in the nighttime and worked the day shift at Exeter. And I'm sure people know this, most of you. They had an anti-burglary team federally funded in Exeter, and he was a leader. They sent him away to school to learn burglary. So he was working a day shift and burglarizing at night and coming back and forth on 256. Now I have a friend, not a friend of mine, but a friend of someone else I know who lives in Exeter now. And they had a burglary at their house in Exeter. And now he comes forward and tells me that Joseph Deangelo was the responding officer in uniform, investigated the burglary, did not do a very good job, and left. And 9 o'clock at night, that same night, Joseph Deangelo knocks on their front door out of uniform, saying he's come here to investigate the burglary. And I need to talk to your wife in the bedroom alone. And why are you doing this? Because we think you had something to do with the burglary for insurance purposes. And the guy says, you're not talking to my wife, get out of here. So he got out of there, and then the guy says he drove by their house 5 or 6 times the rest of that evening. So he might have done a lot of things we don't know about. No, don't answer that guy. No questions from you.
One last question. In the book that's coming out in July, what is it called again? The book?
12/26/75. What does that mean? Anybody know what that means? What? Donna Richmond. Wait till you read this book. If I'm not killed and Tony's not killed before it comes out, you're going to really have your eyes open wide. You will not believe what happened in Tulare County. You will not believe it. But Tony and I believe it. They sent a wrong man to prison and died in prison. He was not guilty of that. Yes, Kenny? There's the best supervisor I ever had right there.
Bill was going to work in that shift, or work in that case, and very complicated, did an excellent job tonight. But I think overall, you gotta point out the fact is that this guy would have done what he did in Sacramento and other places had he not been on him at that time. The team drove him out of here. He quit Exeter Police Department.
If I may, to honor Claude. Claude's grandparents were Alonzo and Leota Boyd. They had 13 kids. Of those 13 kids, one of them's name was Ruth. Ruth married Frank Snelling. Frank Snelling and Ruth Snelling, Claude's parents. Claude was the oldest of 52 cousins. I'm one of those 52. Claude's parents, Frank and Ruth, used to visit my folks a lot. And after Claude was murdered, at one of their visits shortly thereafter, they shared with Mom and Dad that they'd received a harassing phone call. And they thought that it was some young kid calling and harassing them concerning the murder of their son. In retrospect, the kinds of things that Joseph Deangelo did, where he would circle back around, call his victims, remind them of the time that they quote unquote played, etc. Anyway, as these things come together over the years, very doubtful that it was a young kid calling and harassing them about the murder of their son. More than likely, it was this individual.
I have a question up here.
Hi, my name's Katie, came down from Fresno. I have two quick questions. Was there an occupation that you guys like hypothesized that the ransacker held when he was most active?
No, we actually believed for a long, long time that he lived in a garage apartment behind somebody's old lady or elderly couple's house. And he was an introvert, he was a loner. You know, Dr. Ford said he's a loner. So, no, we never did, except the military. We thought he was military. He certainly acted like he snuck around like someone trained to be special forces. We spent a lot of time on military. What's the other?
So the other one is, knowing now what Deangelo's done, like all the heinous stuff he's done, if you could sit down with him in his cell or across the glass, what would you tell him?
What would I tell him?
What would you say?
What would I ask him first?
Well, yeah, you touched on that. What would you tell him?
Yeah, where's that Baruku revolver? And that's the only case in the history of California where we know positively know the murder weapon. We've never seen it. Think about that. We've never seen that gun. We've never possessed it. It's never turned up. That has been on the National Crime Information Center log for all these years, and it's never been found. I would like to ask Joseph Deangelo that. And I would ask, of course, I'd ask him about Jennifer Armour and Donna Richmond. But I would like to tell him that we had you and we should have gotten you. And I wish we had, because none of the rest of this would happen. That's what I would tell him.
For some of the young ones that might be in here, that might be our future protectors, what would you now, after going through everything, advise to them in their future careers?
Okay, here's what I'd say. You officers listen. Take no flack, cut no slack, hook 'em and book 'em and don't look back. That was my motto. That was my motto.
Oh, let me, Brent, quick second. Our agreement was we were going to go until 8. Now, John, if you're willing, we can extend that a little bit. Are you open to that? Those that have to leave, our commitment again was 8 o'clock, but you're certainly welcome to stay. We won't go much longer, but we will ask a few more questions if that works for everyone. So go ahead with your questions. And if you have to leave, feel free.
Hello, my name is Terry Wood. I have a couple questions for you. Couple questions. Do you think that there was another person also involved with James Deangelo?
I didn't get that one.
That there was another person that was assisting and working with James Deangelo while being down here in Visalia?
Have I ever thought of that?
Yes.
No, I don't think anybody, someone else has that theory that there were two people. But no, I never did think that at all, and I don't think it now.
Okay, I was just wondering what the association James Deangelo had with Mount Whitney and the Baptist Church and that area of Visalia while he was in Exeter, where not so many other crimes happened.
That's a great question. I'd like to answer that. You know, I think 5 Yale leaders got burglarized. You remember that? 5 Yale leaders' houses First of all, this is all in the Mount Whitney district. It's not in the Redwood district or anything. County Center and all that was in Whitney district at that time. And all the houses were in the Whitney district. And I think 5 Yale leaders' houses were burglarized. And the person that was suspected of being a bad guy at Mount Whitney taking pictures of the Yale leaders, we determined who that was, and it was not the ransacker. It turned out to be somebody else. So I don't know the answer. I wish I knew the answer. That's a great question. He had something to do with I thought the Baptist church and the Yale leaders in Mount Whitney. Yeah, I agree.
You know what kind of vehicle James Deangelo drove when he was an Exeter cop?
No,
Can that information be found?
not by me. I'm retired. I don't do that. Sacramento might know, and you know what's so funny, before the next question, that lady there has had her hand up for hours. Okay.
Okay, hi, just a quick
Here's
question.
another tidbit before the next question. The acting chief of police in Exeter, California, when Joseph Deangelo was there, was our Captain Pat Bowie. Did Captain Pat Bowie ever talk to Joseph Deangelo? He's passed away, we don't know, but boy, would I love to ask him that. That's a great thing to know. And Exeter kept no records. All his records were gone. They didn't even know he worked there. If it wasn't for Officer Fry, who's 189 years old, still alive, he remembers him. He remembers Joseph. He said, you know what? He always acted like he was too good for Exeter PD. And I asked him one time, why don't you go to the FBI or some bigger agency? You're too educated. He was very educated. You're too educated to be here in Exeter. And he never could get a good answer. So Exeter didn't even have any knowledge of Joseph working there. The Exeter paper had some records of him. That's how we determined it. Yes.
Okay.
West members.
Okay, just.
No, that one's first.
Okay.
We need 62 mics, I think.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, so just if you're comfortable, I just wanted to see, by a show of hands, who in this room has been personally impacted by him?
Wow.
It's quite a few. Yeah.
How many here were suspects?
Stand up. Okay. John, until Deangelo confessed to being the ransacker and the murderer of Claude Snelling, did anybody ever connect the dots? If he hadn't confessed, would we still not know? Wait, didn't Claude Snelling, did somebody ask him when he was, he was confessing all of his crimes, did somebody ask him, were you the ransacker, were you the murderer of Claude Snelling?
Okay, he did not confess to the crime.
He did not?
He pled guilty to the crime. We did not know the ransacker was Joseph Deangelo until he got arrested. Then, when we found out he was an ex-Exeter police officer, that's hard to say, ex-Exeter police officer, then we knew he was a ransacker. But we had no knowledge of that before that happened. So he didn't confess to killing Claude Snelling, he pled guilty to it. There's a difference. He's not talking about it, he's not talking. He made the deal that he wouldn't get the death penalty if he pled guilty to his crimes.
Hey there. Thank you, John. I had 2 questions, sir.
One is, did anybody ever end up talking to Bonnie, since he would say things about Bonnie?
Can you put the mic closer, please? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
No, tell that guy.
Yeah. Did anybody ever talk to Bonnie, since he would make statements about Bonnie, to just see if there was any kind of relationship or with like things that were happening in their relationship and then sequence of events with his activity? Not sure.
I don't know that either. I think maybe Sacramento did at some point, but know that he was arrested based on forensic genealogy. So it's obviously connected to DNA, and so that was up in Sacramento, so I don't think John followed any of that.
Okay. And
she is interviewed? Man in the window? Okay, good to know. Any final questions, or we're going to wrap it for go ahead, yeah.
The evening that he escaped through one of his many openings from my house and escaped across the roof and out the front when all the police were in the back, even with a dog, and my neighbor's backyard also, a 14-year-old kid jumped the fence on the other side. I lived on the corner. And as it turned out, I said, that's not even the right clothes that the person had on. And he told the police that somebody paid him $20 to jump my fence as a distraction.
Thank you for that.
I believe that.
Okay, any last questions? We're 5 after, so thank you for bearing with us and hanging after. Any other burning questions that we need to get addressed? Okay.
Burner. We got a burner.
It better be good.
Yeah. Really, the pressure is on.
I don't get overtime.
I just had a question about your visit to Sacramento. I know there is a mutual respect between police and sheriff's department and.
Wow, you know something I don't know.
Well, the goal, the end goal is the purpose. So I didn't know if you could give just a small insight into a meeting with Shelby and what he was like.
Shelby and I got along pretty good after we got to know each other. We talked on the phone a dozen times. He used to call me at home after I retired. I think he sort of felt deep down that they were wrong. And he sort of sided with me, with us, not me, us, and felt that the Ransacker was the East Area rapist. But again, he was influenced by political pressure, I thought. As far as getting along, let me tell you this to end it. At no time has a sheriff's detective ever asked me a question about Jennifer Herman. Why not? Remember, a good investigator's mind works like a parachute. It only works when it's open. Shipley, there's two sides to every story. If you see a knife wound in a guy's belly, don't mean there's not a bullet hole in his back. It's not black and white. So I think agencies get along good. But I don't think it's a blanket effect statewide.
Okay.
Sacramento, how could they deny the similarities with all the idiosyncrasies you had with Ransacker?
Just a second, Miles, just a second.
I'm really puzzled how Sacramento could continually deny a connection between the Ransacker and the East Area rapist with all the similarities in his MO and all the idiosyncrasies and all the different things. And it always bugged me how they could not there was just, there's just too many to ignore.
Here's Sacramento's exact response after Joseph Deangelo was arrested. It was the right time. We had shoe tracks that matched. He was lefty, and they sort of felt he leaned toward his left during the race. No on Thursdays, took photos, wore a ski mask, took coins, one earring out of a pair, hit piggy banks, and ate a lot of ice cream. And he was not the Visalia.
Thank you, John. Okay, folks, we're going to call it quits. Thank you all for coming, and thanks also to you on live streaming that are watching this. And by the way, you can review this again. In fact, it's going to be around forever on YouTube, and there are instructions for how to review this evening and go back to it later when you get to your computers. And the instructions are on the table out in front. With that, the evening is over. And again, join me one more time in thanking John for coming out of retirement to. And thank you, Beth, for coming. Your surprise visit was so valuable for us. Thank you for that. And thanks to COS for hosting this. You get that? Can I give this to you or should
I will take it.